Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me, as always, is Luca. Luca, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's no,
Mm.
it's a nice casual Sunday. I
Yeah,
think it
nothing big
was
going on at all.
nothing big going on at all. It was an enjoyable kind of what are we mid-November Sunday. The leaves are turning, Josh. They're falling on my front yard. I didn't get around to clearing them today. So my front yard's a little bit full of leaves, but nothing big. They're doing good. Doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. The Bills improved to 9-2, Luca, with a 30-21 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, handing the Chiefs their first loss of the season. 9-2 with no Keon Coleman, with no Matt Milano the entire year, with no Von Miller for 4 games, playing a handful of games without Amari Cooper, playing multiple games without Khalil Shakir, playing today without Spencer Brown. They played 3 or 4 games this season without Taron Johnson. 9-2, Luca. This was a rebuilding year, and I'm going to get your feelings for how you felt when the game ended. But to me, the story of this game is the fact that this team is going into the bye at 9-2 with all the adversity that they faced, including no Kincaid today. Even just an unbelievable job by this group.
It it's funny because I feel like I remember a time, and this feels petty being the way I'm about to be, but I remember a time where we were being told by all the experts, all the media, that this is going to be that down year. This is the unfortunate change that happens in this cycle. And eventually the Bills will come back to being a contender and stuff. But this was supposed to be that time in their cycle of which they were going to dip down. They were going to come down a little bit. And this was no longer a championship window team. They were restructuring, rebuilding, reloading a little bit so they could still be competitive, but don't expect the same Bills we've had or where expectations were of years past. And yet here we are sitting here as individuals that you and I are. When we looked at it, I don't think we felt that exact way. Although I will say in our preseason podcast, you did technically choose the Jets to win the division.
Sure
No
did.
shame. No shame. It's a good time to bring it up.
Well,
But overall, what I love is not only is this team overachieving from those preseason expectations, they're showing one, why Josh Allen truly is just one of one. And then two, that this is just a true reload and they are still well coached. They have an MVP caliber quarterback and they are always going to be competitive as long as 17 is under center and the coaching understands exactly what they're going to get out of all individuals, regardless if they're available or not. And like you had mentioned, there were certain key members out this week, so you need others to step up, and they did. Even out of the closet of unknown, Curtis Samuel decided to finally show his number one jersey, get it a little dirty, catch some balls, and make things happen. Almost slipped on his touchdown, but overall, hey, Curtis Samuel, welcome to the party. It's what makes it even more beautiful being the first time 9-2 since 1992. And just being another championship caliber team is having it right now where you get to go into your bye week after knocking off the Chiefs for the first time this season on their loss column. They have a one there now, and they have to look in their rear view mirror and just wonder what's going on with the Bills, because that one seed that they're trying to hold on to is officially up for grabs. This was a huge swing in that. Now, it was just a week 11 win, if we want to call it that and such. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about the week 11 or sorry, about the one seed thing. And it is what it is. But just it's an unbelievable taste of victory to have with all the things that go along with it. Josh, you want to just say, not you, Josh Allen, you want to say it's just a week 11 win and all that kind of stuff. That's great. Let us do the talking for you and just say how amazing it is that we are going to go into this bye, be able to enjoy a week without Bills football, and just sit there and still reminisce about this amazing win over the Chiefs and how they now have to recoup. They have a nice little bit of a cupcake layup in Carolina next week. But overall, they do have to kind of look back a little bit and see what the heck is going on, because one more slip up, if the Bills can keep rolling along, and next thing you know, they lose that thing they were sitting on top of, being the AFC conference.
It's a massive game in the standings. We're going to get into that tonight. We're going to get into all the nuts and bolts of this game. But where I want to start is just a little bit of a vent, and I'm going to vent to maybe you out there watching, if you fall into this category. If your reaction to this game, whether you're a Bills fan, whether you're a Chiefs fan, whether you're, I mean, if you're not a Bills fan, you're watching our show, we really appreciate that. But if you're just a sports fan that wants to come see a Bills reaction to beating the Chiefs, if your reaction to this game is that was the Bills Super Bowl, do better. That is not the reaction of any Bills fan that we know. That is not the reaction of the Bills players. Give us, the Bills fans that watch this team, a little bit of credit for having watched this team. They have beaten the Chiefs now 4 years in a row in the regular season. Is it cool to beat the Chiefs when they're 9-0? Absolutely. Is it cool to beat the best team in the conference when you're trying to finish with the 1 seed? Absolutely. Are we all well aware of the fact that the Bills under Josh Allen have lost 3 playoff games to the Chiefs while beating them in the regular season 4 times? Yes, we are. No single Bills fan, single Bills player thinks that the Super Bowl was won tonight. We are well aware of this team's history, but what we do know is this is a team that came into this game without Dalton Kincaid, without Keon Coleman, without Spencer Brown, had about half of Amari Cooper, and they put up 30 points on the Chiefs defense, which for my money is the best defense in the sport. They have held teams to less than 20 points 5 times this season, have yet to give up 30 until today. So we're happy about the win. I think we're happy about what this team, this Bills team, has proven in the first 11 games of the season. But nobody's printing Super Bowl tickets over a regular season Bills victory. Luka, we've seen the Bills in the regular season under Allen and McDermott go to LA on banner night and demolish the Rams. We've seen them win in Arrowhead multiple times. We've seen them win in Baltimore against Lamar. We've seen them beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Like, the regular season accolades are piling up for this team to the point where no singular regular season win is really going to get us that excited. But to be 9-2 when this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, and to see this team come out like this against that defense, missing the key players we talked about, it was a special day, and I think that's what has us all excited.
Perfectly said, right? None of us are going to be out here saying we just won the Super Bowl on November 17th as we're recording. No, not one individual. If they are, you're clowning. You just, what are you trying to prove? What are you trying to say? I don't understand you. But overall, yes, all those other teams where we did have these hopes, they did not hit that 9-2 mark. You know, last season it was 6-6 at one point, right? There were a lot of different things that have happened throughout these previous seasons where we have not sat here and been able to talk about a 9-2 Bills team since I was a wee little lad, Josh. I didn't even know what American football was. I didn't know what a football looked like. And it's funny how you said it perfectly before we came on air. I think this is a perfect way to say it, where during the week you had thought about the game, but it wasn't something that you were obsessive over, right? And then as it even came to the day of, you were enjoying yourself and you had a little bit of confidence stewing inside of you as the game was coming up. I will say for myself, when the inactives came out and it officially, it was made official that Spencer Brown was not playing, I was a little bit like, well, what the hell are we doing at right tackle? And then, of course, during the game, by the way, when Deion Dawkins goes down, I was like, what the hell are we doing at left tackle? But overall, as you said, going back to that, you felt a little confident. But as soon as you sat down, I had the same feeling. I didn't say it really before we were on air, but I had the same exact feeling. As soon as the game started, as soon as I saw Bass kicking it off to start the game, it felt like a playoff game. And it was like, we need to win this explicitative game. We need to win this fucking game. And it's like all of the thought about it being just one game, 1 week, if we lose this, no big deal. It is what it is. Whatever you want to put as your general fluff saying in there, that went out the window. It's like, let's win this fucking game. We want this. And as the drive in, drive out, every drive, it felt playoff like for good reason. I mean, this is, and it's beaten to death, but it is valid. This is This is Brady Manning. This is now Allen Mahomes. This truly is that era. It's crazy as a Bills fan to be living in that era, but it is what it is. So of course these games are heightened. In my living room, I kept joking, this is the regular season Super Bowl. And it almost felt like even the TV broadcast was treating it as such. It had a heightened element to it. And bravo to CBS to once again doing a very good job in my eyes of broadcasting this game, because it only enhanced my viewing experience and just being overly excited about what we were watching, both as a Bills fan, but even just as a football fan. This was a phenomenal game to watch. And of course, thank God for us being Bills fans to enjoy Josh Allen's MVP moment kind of run that just encapsulated it all. And it is a beautiful thing to be sitting here now at 9-2. Once again, as we have said to death, something we have not been able to experience for a very long time, if at all in our lifetime. And it's the bye week couldn't have come soon enough for injury's sake. But boy, is this going to be an absolute beautiful 2 weeks between now and the next football game we get to see these Bills play, because where we are currently and what the season was supposed to be and now what we are being able to experience is just incredible.
And we've seen the Bills go into the bye week with some pain before. Hail Murray was right before the bye. Last year's overtime loss in Philadelphia was right before the bye. This one is super sweet. And to your point, Luka, the Bills now can lick their wounds a little bit and get some guys back, hopefully, on the other side of this bye, one of which, Matt Milano, started practicing this week. I would not anticipate him being ready for game action, although Joe Buscaglia did say today he wouldn't be surprised if he even had a small role in this Niners game. But Luka, not going to kill any more time. When this game went final, the Bills are winning 31 to nothing. That would be fantastic. 30 to 21. There it is. There's the score of the game. And the Bills improved to 9-2, handing the Chiefs their first loss of the season. What was going through your mind?
Euphoria, excitement. There was no disbelief. I'll say that. It was almost validation of, yes, Josh Allen is that guy. I loved the moment. If no one noticed it, I don't know if you did, when I believe it was Reggie Gilliam did a figurative crown and put it on Josh Allen's head after the final kneel down. And it's that moment, enjoying what this game was, enjoying this for the evening. We'll enjoy it tomorrow when we're watching. If you watch national media things, I'm sorry, first and foremost, there is better content out there. But if that's your thing, it's going to be enjoyable. It's, McAfee show. I cannot wait for tomorrow. Knowing that those things are coming thanks to this win. When that kneel down happened, Josh, I was euphoric for being able to enjoy this. As you said, I didn't even think about it, but it does feel like we, even in that moment, it felt different going into the bye this year than it has in years past. And for the first time, I think this season, when that kneel down happened, when the win was officially there, watching Allen and Mahomes, embrace quickly, watching McDermott and Reed embrace with all of them on the field, and myself included, going, this matchup will probably happen again down the road. It was one of those ones where this bye week's going to be different in all the right reasons. And this season is different. It's just got a different vibe to it. And this win just validated that feeling.
I agree with you 100%. It was a great win. Is there anything about this game that surprised you? I'm looking at some of the Bills' offensive numbers. Khalil Shakir, 8 for 70. Curtis Samuel, welcome to the show, 5 for 58 and a touchdown. And boy, that touchdown was a thing of beauty because he could have easily slipped. It looked like he was going to. Amari Cooper, only 2 of 55, but both of those catches, Luka, highlight reel, high leverage situation catches. The Bills needed both of those in the worst way. Dawson Knox, 4 for 40, filling in nicely for Kincaid. On the ground, James Cook only averaged 2.2 yards per carry, but had 2 rushing touchdowns. Ray Davis also 2.2 yards per carry. Anything about this game that surprised you offensively for the Bills?
I don't know about surprised. I was relieved with everything. I was getting really sick of the run, pass feel early on of the actual game flow. And I guess if I wanted to say surprising, that would be surprising, only because the Chiefs' run ability to stop the run is just phenomenal this year, it feels like. So I was questioning if there was something they were trying to target. But even kind of to spin it the other way, I know on the stat sheet it looks like Ed Oliver only has one registered tackle, but it felt like Ed Oliver was way more impactful than what shows on the stat sheet. And overall, the defensive line in general, I think, was another thing that deserves a little bit of a shout out and a surprise, that it was just like, that was a beautiful situation, because it's been known, right, ever since the Super Bowl where the Bucs dominated the Chiefs. It's like, it feels like the only way to really get at Mahomes and the Chiefs is you have to have constant pressure on Mahomes, force him to do things that he's uncomfortable doing, or he can't trust what he's seeing, or he can't trust what's going on around him. And it did feel like, for the most part, that this defensive line did a phenomenal job achieving that. Honestly, the only time where the pressure wasn't working out was any random time that the Bills decided to, send a little bit extra, when they would blitz occasionally, and Mahomes was able to diagnose it, put a ball where it needed to go, or they had a perfectly timed run for whatever's going on. I mean, the one where it was just a simple, I think it was a Mecole Hardman, kind of sweep run at the exact time we ran an inside blitz pressure. It was like, of course, because it's the Chiefs versus the Bills, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. But props to the defensive line. That's probably my most surprising thing, because we've been talking about Ed Oliver not showing up. AJ Epinesa has honestly been pissing me off a little bit lately, like things like that. And AJ did not have a great start with that penalty. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, can you not? But they turned things around. That defensive line from a whole group, another fantastic game out of him. Von Miller, it's regardless of what he does statistically, you can see there's still value with what he's doing. He got sack credited to himself, but overall, it's like that D-line unit stepped up huge today, and basically was the main key to the defense's success in my eyes. And yeah, shout out them. That was probably the most surprising, because it has felt a little underwhelming of recent from that unit as a whole. This was a game they needed to step up, and they absolutely did.
I'm surprised, looking at the box score, that Gregory Rousseau didn't have like a single stat. They didn't no tackle or anything, because to my eyes, Luka, he was dominating in the first half. He had the near sack of Mahomes. I think he was the one that was bringing him to the ground when he throws the interception to Rapp. He was dominating his matchup against Wanya Morris on the outside, which maybe did free up things for Ed Oliver on the inside. This, by most accounts, is the best interior offensive line in the sport. So if you had asked me before the game, do I think this is when Ed Oliver is going to have his best game of the season, I would have said, hell no.
Right.
And to Luka's point, boy, did he pick a great time to show up. I can't wait to see what, folks that review the film think, to dive into it and see for myself. What did you think of McDermott's decision to go for the first fourth down? The one that was the incomplete, interception and he throwing a ball to Knox coming across the middle. Looks like Knox may have stopped his route. Where were you at with the actual decision there? Because there was a lot of pushback on Twitter, where, oh, come on, McDermott, you could have made it a 2-score game there. My initial tweet from our Bills Chat Pod account was, I think if you're mad about them not kicking the field goal, you're hindsight 2020ing it, because it was basically 4th and 2, 4th and 3, and Tyler Bass had already missed an extra point. So you're assuming a lot to think Tyler Bass is making that kick heading toward the tunnel end anyway. But also, you have Josh Allen and you have 3 yards to get. Do you want to trust Tyler Bass to make a long field goal, or do you want to trust your quarterback to get 3 yards? So I had no problem with it. I hated the result. But what did you think about that decision?
The decision I was absolutely okay with. When it comes to this, I mean, Tony Romo himself said it best right before the Allen touchdown run later on in the game. It's like, in those moments, just, I want Josh Allen to have the ball. I want to trust that that's going to happen. It's one of those things where I can understand if you're upset, because it's like you could do something about it at that moment in time. But overall, it's like you're asking, as you said, you're asking a lot from Tyler Bass at that moment in time, where you really don't know truly where his headspace is. Although, after the initial miss, he hadn't missed one after that. But then on top of it, it's like, that's one from a distance down the side that you really don't want to be kicking towards. And I am absolutely A-okay with keeping the ball in Allen's hand, going for it, seeing what you can get. The result just makes it feel, it's the ultimate hindsight situation, right? It's one of those ones where you can say that you're being subjective in your opinion, where you're not letting the outcome of a decision dictate what your feelings are of the decision overall, but that's bullshit. If you have the variable in hand of what the outcome was, your emotions and reaction afterwards is absolutely going to be influenced by what you just experienced. Don't tell me otherwise. If you have visual evidence of you disagreeing with it, timestamped in before, that's a whole nother discussion. But most individuals, I feel like, that then give your reaction ultimately are just going to sit there and say that. I'm not saying that it's always the case that I want it to be that way, but I am fully with any decision if that means Josh Allen has the ball in his hands. The one where I was actually happy that they didn't go for it, I had one of my buddies in my living room said 4th and 8. What was it, 4th and 8 or whatever, where they just tried the classic, like, get them to jump to make it 4th and short.
Yeah, that
They
was
didn't get
early,
it, and then they took the punt. It's like, that was the one where I was like, all right, let's not be stupid here and punt the ball. 4th and 8's a lot to ask for. That's where I love Josh Allen to death, but this feels like a situation early in the game where it's like, let's not get crazy yet, and that is also a low percentage down in distance. Like, we're okay right now. Kansas City wasn't really threatening too much at that point in time. That's the only one where I was okay with McDermott pulling the ball out of Allen's hands and doing whatever else with it. At any other time you have a 4th and short or whatever it might be, and it makes any remote sense, Josh, if it's a coin flip, I'd rather have that coin be on the side of Josh Allen than anything else, because you cannot tell me under any circumstance that there's anyone else you want the ball in the hands of than Josh Allen on this roster, plain and simple. So if you're trying to win the game, 17 should be the individual making not making the decisions, but making the outcome happen however it needs to.
The Bills defensively, to me, I know the final Josh Allen run is the highlight reel play, and the whole that was his MVP moment. I totally agree with all of that, but to me, this was a Bills defensive game. There were multiple times in this game where it felt like this game could have gotten away from the Bills, and the defense kept making plays. You started off the second play of the game, they pick off Patrick Mahomes. And the last play of the game that the Chiefs have the ball, they pick off Patrick Mahomes. And then sandwiched in between there, the Chiefs punted 4 times. I thought the biggest sequence, Luka, was coming out of the second half. The Bills get the ball. They get a field goal before the end of the half, and you're thinking, okay, let's double dip. And instead they go 3 and out. They punt to the Chiefs, and the Bills force a 3 and out. The Bills get the ball back, but they do nothing with it. And the Bills defense gets the ball right back in the hands of the offense, steadying the ship, not letting the Chiefs get the lead, because you already mentioned the fact Spencer Brown's out. Ryan Vandermark's in there. The worst case scenario for the Bills in this game would be to fall behind, have to throw, and now you have Ryan Vandermark trying to block George Karlaftis, or you've seen them kick Chris Jones out to the edge sometimes. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why on some of those 2nd and 10s, the Bills were running the ball, trying to stay out of 3rd and long. They were really trying to protect Ryan Vandermark. It didn't work very well, but the Bills didn't get sacked at all today. I look at this game, and one stark contrast between this game and the playoff game last January in Buffalo is the stat output of Travis Kelce. In that game, the playoff game, Travis Kelce had 5 receptions for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. Today, Luka, Travis Kelce had 2 catches for 8 yards. Is it oversimplifying it to say remove AJ Klein, insert Terrell Bernard, or what other factors do you think contribute to that really different stat line?
Age. Age in the sense of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is no longer an individual that he would kill us, even if he was catching it underneath and was able to turn it upfield for another 10 yards to pick up a first down. That is the bread and butter of Mahomes to Kelce. That's always been kind of what they've been able to do. Find that connection, find the pocket in the zone, turn up, make a big play out of it. You know, Travis Kelce was the ultimate chain mover for years for Kansas City. He is not that guy anymore. His hands are still great. He still obviously he's very, very smart. He can find pockets of space. You have to give him time. And also, if you're able to keep him as the underneath man, we saw it, I believe it was a 3rd and long. They checked it down to him, and Cam Lewis came flying in. And I, at no point, as soon as Kelce caught that ball, thought that Travis Kelce was going to slip and get the first down. It was clear as day. It's like, he is not that same guy. And So I do think it's a little oversimplifying when it comes to saying it's just because Klein removed Bernard in, but that also, of course, plays a factor in it. The defense was healthier than where it was in trying to defend Kelsey, but Kelsey is also almost a full year older now than he was last season. And it does feel like Kelsey, there's probably a little bit of a conservation on his part of his play. And I'm sure we'll see a better version of himself, even 1 year older, once the games really start mattering for the Chiefs. But that said, I still think you get more of what you're seeing now than what you saw even in the playoffs last year until proven otherwise, because he moves differently. He's being, he's coming off the field of play a lot more than usual as well. Like he would still remain in there as a blocker because he's still actually decent at that as well. Like he'd be a utilized piece where you'd have to respect 87 in there for them. That is not happening anymore. You're seeing him come off the field a little bit more. Age is undefeated. You saw it in the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight. Age is always undefeated, and it just is what it is. So yeah, I think that's just as much of a factor realistically as it is where AJ Klein fortunately was no longer there, and we did have Terrell Bernard kind of sitting back there to take care of business when it comes to Travis Kelce, or even have Christian Benford lined up on him a couple times. And it's like, yeah, I'll take our 47 versus your 87 all day long.
Who do you think's the biggest weapon to stop on the Chiefs? I think most of us think there's going to be a rematch. Xavier Worthy certainly had a good day today. You have to ask yourself, was that by design? Were they okay with Xavier Worthy getting what he got while focusing on guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce and the run game with Kareem Hunt? And they're not going to get Rashee Rice back this year. They are going to get Pacheco back maybe as quickly as next week. Outside of Mahomes, obviously, who do you think is the guy on defense that you really have to take away? Or is it kind of like the Bills early in the year where just play your defense because they don't really have a true game breaker?
I think the individual you circle on key downs is D-Hop. I think that is the person. I mentioned with Travis Kelce, the years of success with him and Mahomes was always because Kelce was the chain mover. And I think the success of the Chiefs overall has come because they always had that dependable chain mover, even in the Tyreek years. The Tyreek explosive plays, half the time they'd be coming because it was just enough for a first down, and then Tyreek's Tyreek, so he'd be able to run after catch and turn it. Or it's just a, F it, and Mahomes is bombing it to Tyreek, and that is what it is. The key of that offense's success, though, the reason the Chiefs were willing to let Tyreek go and not pay him his absorbent amount of money, but they held on to Travis Kelce, is because Travis Kelce was the key that kept the offense moving. The key to the success was the chain moving operation that was Mahomes to Kelce. With Kelce no longer really being that guy, he will still be in some capacity, obviously, like I just said, when the games matter, but they still needed another one. They diagnosed that, and then they went out and got D-Hop. D-Hop is going to be that guy. If you noticed it, even when DeAndre Hopkins dropped one, that was a key third down play, if I recall, or a key chain moving play, we'll call it. I know that for a fact, and he just wasn't able to come down with it. But it was clear as day in my eyes that in third and long, or just basically long passing situations where Mahomes just was truly looking for something to move the chains, that individual was DeAndre Hopkins. So if it's a 3rd and 7 or longer or whatever it is on a key situation that the Chiefs want to ensure they have at least a first down, DeAndre Hopkins is, if I'm McDermott and an individual, anyone out there that's trying to stop the Chiefs, that is the person I circle and at least make sure is highlighted when it comes to that play, because I imagine at worst or at best, however you want to call it, that's going to be Mahomes' first read. And then if you can get him to look off that read, he's got to find something else. And that's basically the best you can ask for. If you run a good defensive operation, get the quarterback off their first read. Hopefully that buys enough time for either the pass rush to get there or to him to make a mistake, whatever it might be. But yeah, D-Hop to me is truly the guy. The Xavier Worthy stuff, that felt like a true it's not. Xavier Worthy had a good game until that drop. Let's be frank, like that, or it's not even a drop, just screwing up his footwork completely. It's receivers do that, but also it felt like Andy Reid, especially since a lot of it was coming in the first half, was just like, "Hey Bills, hey Bean, this is the thing you gifted us. Thank you so very much." And it was almost just kind of rubbing the nose in it a little bit, professionally, respectfully, not in any some obnoxious way. I think that's the sign of a great offensive coordinator, knowing exactly what he wants to do with something and showing you exactly why. And it is what it is. Tip of the cap to Andy Reid. Yes, you showed us exactly why you love another Deshaun Jackson in your offense, whatever you want to call it. But D Hop is truly the guy to kind of highlight and circle when the downs matter and the chains need to be moved.
Speaking of receivers, Curtis Samuel, 5 for 58, and had a touchdown that put the Bills up by 2 scores ever so briefly in the fourth quarter. And that's coming off of a game last week where he was 4 for 35 against the Colts. These are not eye-popping numbers, but given what we've seen out of Curtis Samuel the last couple of weeks, where's your optimism level on what kind of weapon he can be for the Bills down the stretch? Because when you look at what the Bills at full health can run out there at receiver, you figure you're going to have Shakir in the slot. You figure you're going to have Cooper and Coleman on boundary, and Curtis Samuel really can mix in and be kind of like, at his best, a much better version than Isaiah McKenzie ever was for this team. And now you have Mac Hollins, who, early in the year when he was your primary Z receiver was very underwhelming, but as a guy that can come in and just be reliable and fill in and be like, to me, a much better Jake Kumaro. And then you have Dalton Kincaid coming back too. This legitimately could be the best set of weapons Josh Allen has ever had in Buffalo. And then you factor in the best offensive line he's had and maybe the best play caller. I still might lean Dable on that, but let's start just with Samuel before we get to like a big picture weapons thing. Where's your confidence level on him? Has the meter moved at all the last 2 weeks?
It's moved a little bit. I think part of it might truly be just because of health. I mean, we can't forget the turf toe situation that came out of camp, and maybe that was really truly hindering him to a point where it was questioning, why was he so useless? Could we have done something else? All the things that we said. And now at least we're seeing that he can actually run after the catch. He can turn upfield. He can make a guy miss. He can do the things that we kind of needed him to do all season. So what I would say is it does kind of roll into the weapon conversation. And I'm not going to sit here and say this is the best set of weapons that Josh Allen's ever had, because I don't believe that, because I think talent goes into that. And this is not the most talented set of weapons that he's ever had. I will not say that. I will not believe that. That is, to me, not the case. I think he's had better overall top to bottom weapons. But what I will say this is, and what this is the most of, is the most dependable set of weapons he's had top to bottom. And what that value that brings is greater than talent, because talent is potential and dependability is factual. It's actual. It's reality. He knows he can trust who he's going to, whether it's Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel, Kincaid, Keon Coleman. Across the board, Josh Allen seems to trust everyone around him and knows that these guys will come up with plays when he needs them. There's only been one game where they all kind of fell short, and that was the Baltimore game in my eyes. Every other game, the Houston game to me is just Josh Allen had the worst game of his career at this point, and it was just is what it is at this point. It's crazy that we're sitting here at 9-2, Josh, knowing that game also came in the same season, because these are completely different situations and completely different visuals. And how the hell did we go from that in week 5 to this in week 11? I love, though, that Curtis Samuel is starting to at least become something Josh Allen feels like he can depend on. Joe Brady can depend on calling his number, and he can just be one of the many in the machine that is the receiving weapon room, or just the weapon room in general, right? You want to have the ability where if injuries come up, if Keon's out, if Amari's unavailable, or he can only play on a pitch count, basically when they're expecting man press, and that's when you need Amari Cooper to shine, which he did. And it's like, when you need those things, you need to have guys that you can just plug and play, because it makes defenses honor it all. If the less you can depend on, the more a defense can just tee off on whatever you're more successful at, whatever they know you're most successful at. And that's what we would see in seasons past, is like when push came to shove, eventually defenses would just be like, okay, we're going to double shade Diggs. We're going to do this with Gabe Davis to make sure he doesn't gazelle run past us. What are you going to do now? And that's when Josh Allen would have to put on a Superman cape and be absolutely perfect. Now there's really no one way to skin a cat when it comes to, beating this Bills defense or offense. and defenses can't really tee off on anything because we seem to have dependable answers to any issue you present us. And that is what's incredible. That is what I will say this is the most of. I think this is the most dependable and most reliable set of weapons that Josh Allen's ever had in his career from top to bottom in the cupboard. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. They don't need to be the most talented, the most explosive, the most dynamic players from top to bottom. We don't need to have our fourth receiver be an elite, talented Alabama receiver like Burton. It's like, no, we can get by with these guys because Josh Allen trusts them and they're as dependable as possible to get the offense to be executed at a high level.
Tyler Bass, Luka, he missed an extra point today after going perfect against the Colts, after hitting the massive game winner against Miami. Did he undo everything that he had been doing the last few weeks, or are we still shaky on him? I never stopped being shaky on him, honestly. Like I love the game winner. I never felt like that was going to somehow magically fix him and make him a 90% field goal kicker. I still do believe that he's as good as they're going to do this year. There's just not a lot of good kickers on the street. I know the Chiefs had a guy off the street that made 3 extra points today, like whoopity-doo. I know Tyler Bass missed an extra point, but let's just be honest here. Where are you at with Tyler Bass, who did make 1 field goal today and he went 2 for 3 on extra points?
There was something weird going on in the air, Josh, because Justin Tucker also missed 2 kicks in his game, which were
he's
pretty
having
crucial.
A rough year.
He's having a brutal one. But kickers miss kicks. This seems to be a year where kickers are missing a little bit more than usual. I'm with you when it comes to, I never was fully like, okay, he's swag Bass back, it's everything's good, all of that kind of stuff. Sitting in Indianapolis last week, I was cautiously optimistic every time he was kicking a ball. And luckily I would look at the refs who are standing under the posts every time, sitting in the stands, just be like, please, for the love of God, put your hands up that this went in. And every time they would. This week that happens. And it was just one of those ones where, of course, it had to be the first one to at least set the tone, Josh. But I will also say this. There's a weird thing looking back, and this is where reflective, kind of hindsight is a big deal. Looking back on it, it's kind of nice that it was the first one. Because if it was a big field goal, that could have made it a 2-possession game. Or if it was an extra point that, like that last extra point, my buddy, shout out Nino, he goes, when Josh Allen, no, not the Josh Allen one, when the Curtis Samuel touchdown happens, he goes, 2-score game again. I was like, not yet. Like, it's an 8-point game. That is not a 2-score game. It's like, not yet. And then you see that go through. It almost made those feel a little bit better. It was like, okay, we got the one out of the way. He's hitting them all now. Things are okay. And overall, I think you also said it perfectly. You're not going to do better than him this year. It's going to be something where you probably need to evaluate after the season's end, however it ends. But overall, it's always going to be there. We should always understand that Bass has probably a miss in him somewhere. And I'm probably going to go moving forward, hoping to God that it happens early on in the game, because looking back on it, it's like that seemed to be a better, because at least you can game plan around that from there. Maybe that helped McDermott make the decisions that he did on whether to go for it or not, whatever it is. It's like, okay, screw it. If we can't fully depend on Bass tonight, we're going to be going for it on our 4th and 2s at the 30, whatever it is. Maybe that plays a factor in it. Cool. I'm just throwing out ideas here. Overall, though, Bass missed a kick. Bummer. It sucks. But ideally, it was kind of an okay spot to miss it, because it just set the tone for all the other kicks to kind of give you a little bit of relief afterwards.
What do you think about the Bills' running game today? That's been kind of their staple all season long. They were missing Spencer Brown, who by most accounts is their best run blocking offensive lineman, if not Deion Dawkins. He is such a weapon in the running game. You saw firsthand in Indy last week how much he can open the door on some of these pulls they do with him. The Chiefs have a great run defense. We understand that. Any concern going forward about this Bills running game?
No, when Spencer Brown was officially out and inactive, that was to me one where I was like, this is going to be a struggle to run the ball. He is by far your biggest enforcer, most athletic offensive lineman, kind of the piece where if you're trying to attack at a zone scheme or even do your pin and pulls, whatever you're trying to achieve on the ground, Spencer Brown's kind of that key guy. Like, you can really do a lot with him. And then you can also depend on him being just a nice seal on the edge there. You don't have to give him help too much, stuff like that. And if you noticed, A lot of times, if you wanted to find success anywhere, even in the pass game, you had to give Vandermark a little bit of assistance over there. And you absolutely also then couldn't leave Jones soloed on either Torrance or Edwards. Talk about a rough game, by the way. Anytime it was Edwards soloed on Chris Jones, I was just like, why?
Yeah, that they were
But
they were begging for Allen to get crushed a couple times.
not a good time. But I'm not overly concerned about the run game. I still think the Bills' run game. What I will say is this: I'm very happy that they still stuck with it. This felt like one where it was not successful early. I mentioned how I was very frustrated with this whole like run, pass approach early on in the game, but they still stuck with it even in the third quarter as they weren't able to move the ball and were punting it back to the Chiefs. Thankfully, then our defense would step up and have the ball punted back to us, and they continued to stick with it. I will also say the most bet prop I read on multiple places was Josh Allen's over 7.5 carries. Classic. That was a hammer situation there. I think it was even minus 140 in one place. I looked at it and it was just like, you still bet the over. That was going to happen this game. And this is one where you were without probably your biggest enforcer in the run game, plus great rush defense. So overall, it's kind of, you just had to stick with it to make sure the defense honored it more than anything else. And that's something that inexperienced play callers probably wouldn't do. And Joe Brady's just showing that he understood that the run game still has a big part of this offense's success, and he still stuck with it to make sure that the Chiefs defense had to respect it and take care of that before anything else.
If you're watching on YouTube, I'm looking at my phone because I had Quentin Morris anytime touchdown boosted on FanDuel, which who cares? Like, I didn't get it. Boy, did I have a look at it though. He was naked. He was wide open down the field.
Damn, Josh Allen underthrown that ball.
Allen got way too cute. You know, it's so funny. It's not funny. Funny is such a not the right word, but sometimes Josh Allen will just miss the layups, and then you get frustrated, but you're like, if he hit those consistently, he's probably the best quarterback any of us have ever seen in our entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no perfect quarterback, and he misses some layups. There was a third down throw to Shakir or Samuel in the flat, like a little screen they had set up, and he kind of throw it at the feet. And then the one with Quentin Morris, like just put enough air under the ball that he can just run to it. And it doesn't get there. So it is what it is. They survived the day. I want to do game balls and game checks now, Luka, because I want to talk a little bit big picture before we get out of here. So let's get to our favorite segment of the week, particularly after a win. Game balls and game checks. The way this works is game ball is our MVP. Game check is the player that didn't even need to show up today. They should hand in their game check. We do not duplicate. So if Luka picks Josh Allen, I don't pick Josh Allen. So Luka, who gets your game ball for the Bills' victory over the Chiefs today?
There's a few candidates. There's a few people. It's one where like I actually thought about it as the game was progressing, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with it. And then the moment happens, and it's, look, we try not to do this too much, but there's a reason there was the MVP moment for him.
Put the cape on.
He put the cape, 4th and 2, game's there. Chiefs did a great job. It looked like they basically took away both option A and option B on that play. But then Josh Allen saw the lane, goes through. They tried to shoulder tackle him 3 times. Questionable to do to a 245-pound, 6'4", 6'5" quarterback at full stride. You're probably not going to bring him down. Spoiler alert. And Josh Allen gets the game. That was special. That was in big moments, big players make big plays. And that was it. It happened. Nance had a great call. I saw you shouted that out on on Twitter. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. Everything about it, Homelander meme, everything, down to this minute detail. It was just Josh Allen, that MVP moment. Hopefully it comes to fruition for you at the end of the season as the Bills continue to kind of progress and build on this win after the bye. But for now, you get my game ball, and that should be almost as great as an MVP award, Josh Allen. So Let's just call it for what it is. Josh Allen, you are the game ball of this game.
Such an epic play. And you all know that after any football game, you see like the follow, or maybe right before the game starts, you see that little standard message. It's like, the following broadcast is brought to you by the National Football League. And you have like 3 or 4 highlights in there, like epic highlights. For the longest time, there was a Randy Moss one-handed catch that came against the Bills, Antoine Winfield.
Sick catch.
And then you'd see like Tom Brady doing his "let's go" as he's running toward the Patriots fans in the end zone. Like epic plays. I can absolutely see starting next year the Josh Allen pinball into the end zone turned right into the flex being one of those plays, particularly if this season ends up being one of those seasons that we remember for the rest of our lives. Josh Allen was not going to escape this show without a game ball. So you picked him, so I cannot. I'm going to go a little lower key on this one. I do want to shout out Khalil Shakir. He's all reliable. If you want to look for the common denominator in the Ravens and Texans game, outside of the fact that those two teams are very good, Shakir didn't play in the Ravens game and he was very hobbled in the Texans game. I do think that he has become Josh Allen's new Cole Beasley.
It was reversed. Shakir was hobbled in the Ravens game, then he was out, and then Texans game he was out entirely, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering, but either way, he's become Josh Allen's new Cole Beasley, and I don't want to draw a direct parallel because they play the position differently. Shakir is so dangerous after the catch. And in a lot of ways, he reminds me of like a young Robert Woods, the way he is after the catch, and maybe even a little better than that. There's Deebo Samuel-esque stuff going on after the catch with him, but he's also a tremendous route runner, and you can just tell that when the chips are down and Josh Allen needs a play, he's looking for Shakir. He would have gotten it. Amari Cooper, fantastic job today. Only 2 catches, but I mean, we needed both of those in the worst way. Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver, both of you guys did great. Terrell Bernard, a sack, an interception. What a difference that guy makes. But those guys aren't getting it. My game ball is going to go to Ryan Vandemark. First start in the NFL. You're going against Steve Spagnuolo. You're going against George Karlaftis, and you're trying to protect Josh Allen against the 9-0 Chiefs, and Josh Allen doesn't get sacked one time. I can't sit here and tell you that Ryan Vandemark had a great game, but what I can tell you is I didn't hear his name called once for a false start. I didn't hear his name called once for a holding. I didn't see Josh Allen get sacked because of him. He held his own in the biggest game of the year so far for the Bills against the best defense the Bills will probably play all season long. So for that, Ryan Vandemark, you are just the next example, as we have seen this season with Mac Hollins doing it when receivers go down, Kincaid doing, or Knox doing it today when Kincaid is down. Ray Davis did it when James Cook was down in New York. Just next man up. This team lives and breathes it. Every team says it. This team embodies it. It was your day today, Ryan Vandemark. Good job. You got the job done. All right, Luka, there's got to be some bad. I am struggling. I am really struggling to find a game check because what an all-around performance by the Bills today. I guess we have to pick one. So who is your game check award winner? It's such a weird way to phrase it.
Award winner. It's gonna be Josh Allen. No, it is gonna be a tough one. It feels like it was a strong performance, of course, from a lot of guys. Man, this was another one during the game that I really struggled to kind of think of. Even the somewhat of a low hanging fruit would be Tyler Bass, just because he missed the extra point. But like I even said, revisionist history. It's kind of like at least it made every other kick after that he made feel good and relief. And honestly, he made the big ones that went from a 1-score to a 2-score game in key moments later on in the game that it's hard for me to even give him the game check for probably just simple, didn't really impact the game much at all. And realistically, like part of me also wanted to say David Edwards because there were numerous times, but putting him on an island against Chris Jones is just not many people are going to have a good time with that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm probably just going to go with Ray Davis simply because it's kind of a little bit when it comes to Ray Davis could have absolutely not shown up and it would have been exactly the same outcome. I would imagine no matter who else would have been there, whether it was Ty Johnson getting those extra 5 carries that Ray Davis had, whatever it is, it's nothing against Ray Davis. It's just the simple factor of this segment is like game checks, where if you didn't show up, probably doesn't affect the result. And to be honest, Ray Davis kind of fits that bill. So yeah, I'll just go with Ray Davis.
That's a good pick. That would have been my pick had you left it available to me. And I'm just going to pivot and go to Tyler Bass. I don't necessarily believe that he had a terrible day. I love the point you made earlier, how not that you ever want your kicker to miss a kick, but if you look at them as far as leverage goes, he missed the one you could most afford him to miss, and then he recovered as the game went on. And those were high leverage extra points. To Nino's point, or to your point, to Nino, it's not a 2-score game yet. Like, you had to put this one through the pipes, and he did it twice. So I don't feel great about this one, but nobody else really stands out. And I don't feel good about, saying, oh, Jordan Phillips. Like, no, everybody did. In a game like this, it's just hard to really feel like that. Luka, we have a bye week coming up, and we haven't really talked about what we're going to do content-wise. We're going to have a podcast, but I want to talk big picture on this team, maybe what some preseason expectations, where we can revisit some of our predictions. One thing I'm going to have you and I do on the bye week, we'll talk about it now, is I want to power rank the players on both sides of the ball from most important. And we don't have to do most important to least important, but maybe we'll just give like a list of 5 and our reasons why. So we can keep that for the future, but I do want to talk strictly on defense today. Maybe this is like a little preview of that. Who is the Bills' most important player on defense for the players that were available today? And you can take this any direction you want, as far as how you want to rank it. But it doesn't have to be how they played today. But if before the game started, Adam Schefter comes on ESPN and says, guys, we have a breaking news in Buffalo. Player X came up limping in warmups. He's not going to be available today. Which player would have sunk your emotional battleship the most?
I'm gonna go with Terrell Bernard. I think that is what it is at this point. Like, as much as I could say Taron Johnson, probably the best nickel corner in the league, or obviously my guy Christian Benford, as much as I love him, I just, or anyone on the D line, like obviously Rousseau, like you even said, he's not even on the stat sheet for this game, but it was like, you are absolutely accurate. I mean, everyone else on the D line got stats because Rousseau was eating on his side. And then things had to happen away from him that then fell into the hands of everyone else. But Terrell Bernard is absolutely he's the engine to the defense. He is what makes it move and operate at its peak. And, seeing him get that interception downfield in such a beautiful way too. It was this game shows why Josh Allen is your single captain on offense and Terrell Bernard is your single captain on defense. It is like these two guys are the key to this team's success. So yeah, I would say it's Terrell Bernard.
I'm sharing a brain with you on this one. I don't know that I can say Terrell Bernard is the best player on the Bills defense. In fact, I can probably say that I wouldn't say that. I think Taron Johnson has an argument for that. I think Christian Benford certainly has an argument for that. And I think Greg Rousseau has an argument for that. I would actually say in a vacuum, those 3 players I think are better than Terrell Bernard. But everything you just said, I don't want to repeat it, but he is the straw that stirs the drink. And the other piece of it is, if Taron Johnson goes down in warmups, Cam Lewis is in. I can get through a game with Cam Lewis at nickelback. I don't have to really change my scheme too much. Do I lose a lot of the explosiveness and the sharp plays that Taron Johnson makes? Absolutely. You can survive a game with Cam Lewis. If Greg Rousseau goes out, I think it gets trickier, especially with the Smoot injury. I don't love AJ Epinesa having to play every single down. Now you're looking at Von Miller and Solomon playing more. That's really tricky. Benford, to me, if they had already announced me, I feel good about Kyer Elam. I know he was inactive today, so maybe the warm-up thing, because he already would have been ruled out. But if it's a situation where you had to play the Chiefs today and it was Elam and Rasul Douglas, I would hate that Benford was out, but I wouldn't feel like, oh my God, we're not going to be able to survive this game with Elam starting. It's the Nicholas Morrow that comes in for him, Balin Spector when he's healthy. To me, it's also the drop off after him that's so scary. He has gone from a draft pick in round 3 when Kyle Brandt said his name that we were all like, we don't need a linebacker, to an irreplaceable piece on this defense who has a nose for making plays and is an absolute leader in that entire locker room in a season where they saw, if nothing else, a ton of leadership walk out the door. Such a massive player for this team. I don't know if you can quantify it. I think the Bills are absolutely going to make him a very rich man. I think they're going to do the same thing with Rousseau. They're going to do the same thing with Benford. This is the next generation of Bills defense. I'm with you, Terrell Bernard, and I look forward to maybe a longer conversation on offense, defense. I think that'll be fun, like a fun way to kind of like reset this roster, like who are the most important players and so forth. All right, Luka, we were talking about this off the air. The out of town scoreboard kind of doesn't matter a ton to the Bills right now because, I mean, now that you're 9-2, you're the AFC East, you're not even really worried about. To me, the whole reason why you still want to watch the AFC East is maybe you look at Miami as a team that now that they have Tua back is a scarier team than say like the Colts or the Broncos, and you'd want to keep them out. Or, the Bengals are currently playing the Chargers. Maybe you want to keep them out. But to me, Luka, the out-of-town scoreboard is four teams right now. It's the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Ravens, and I suppose the Texans, because they have that win over the Bills. They have some easy games coming up. Otherwise, like, do what you got to do, fellas. Like, enjoy the weather down there.
Yeah, I like that little side off there. No, the reason you watch the AFC East, Josh, is just because it's funny. That's why you watch it. I mean, you couldn't write a better story when it comes to the Jets, your preseason favorite for the AFC East. I'm just going to remind you, it's probably through the end of the season. Just you bit the cheese. You absolutely bit the cheese, and it is what it is. But I don't even put the Texans there. I don't even really put the Steelers there. I think we actually are Steelers. Like today, you should have been rooting for the Steelers, and
100%.
And it's one of those situations where it's Baltimore is the only one you watch, and it's like they have that one thing over you. So please just don't let them win that division where a tiebreaker kind of is detrimental to the Bills. If you lose to the Steelers, it feels lesser anyways. Not that TJ Watt isn't an absolute game wrecker, but I feel like the threat of the Steelers is lesser than what we see from the Ravens. But this Bills team is just, we're built different. It's a different team. I think if you are watching out of town scoreboard at this point and are concerned about the likes of the Bengals, the likes of the Chargers, and you're doing it in retrospect to what it means for the Bills, I think you live in the past.
Yeah.
This is just welcome to the cool side of the pillow.
Yeah.
Welcome to the bright side. This is a place that seemed impossible for Bills fans to live in for 20 years.
Yeah.
This is not an area we're used to. So of this next generation of Bills fans, that even includes myself and for the most part yourself. It's like, this is great. Let's just enjoy that week in, week out. It's the Bills, and then everything else is just kind of part of the orchestra. And you know what it reminds me of, Josh, is Rex Ryan Monday night visiting the Patriots. I go all the way out to Foxborough to watch that game with friends I have. And we go and tailgate, and they have a bit of a different tailgate scene. It's not as, entertaining, we'll call it. Although me and my friends still had a very good time out there, including my Patriot fans. But, I was partaking in a consumption game that we were having fun with, and ended up running and taking care of business, doing something. And all of a sudden, as I'm walking by and enjoying myself, there was a group of individuals. Now, these group of individuals were sitting in lawn chairs, enjoying a nice fire, drinking beverages, having a good old time. And I overheard them. This game, I believe, if I recall, was in October. And I overheard them talk about what are they going to do for the playoffs? And, what feels like this season's plan for the playoffs, and so on and so forth. There was no concern about what Football Sunday looked like the day before. There was no concern about what this Bills team is even going to be doing on that game. As they weren't, I'm not going to call them old men, but as these fine gentlemen were all sitting around their fire enjoying themselves in October for a Monday night game against the Bills, they were talking about what they felt like their plans would be like in the playoff time after their first round bye, and we're able to enjoy the divisional round because this was obviously of the time where the top 2 seeds would get it. And that Patriots team at that time seemed inevitable to be sitting in there. We now live in a timeline similar to that, and it is great. You don't have to be concerned about anything else, and it's fantastic. If you're watching on YouTube, unfortunately, Josh missed most of that story, so it's a damn shame. But it's one of those things where I love looking back now, and I remember thinking how insane that was and how weird that was. And now here we are. It's like it's mid-November, and I'm just thinking about, okay, so what are playoffs going to look like? Who do we think would be coming to Orchard Park for whenever that time comes? What will that be like? How fun would it be to play the Chargers here? We talked about that off air before we started recording. If we were playing the Chargers on Wild Card Weekend, what day of the week do we think that would be? That is the timeline we live in now, and it is awesome. And let's enjoy it while it is.
And for the love of God, no injuries. Like don't be like that Patriots team that lost Wes Welker week 17 in a meaningless game in Houston. Yeah. It is something to talk about where you were then on that Monday night game, and talking to those Patriots fans, because back in those days as a Bills fan, every regular season game felt like a playoff game because the Bills were always within 1 or 2 games of making the playoffs and they never made it. And those Patriots games, from our perspective, were like the Super Bowl. You would just beg, like, can we get these guys once, particularly in Foxborough? Like, can we just beat these guys in Foxborough? And the Bills beat the Patriots during the drought twice in Foxborough. One was the Kyle Orton year where they had everything wrapped up week 17. Tom Brady comes out at like the second quarter and Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. The other one, Rex Ryan's second year here, and Tom Brady suspended, Jimmy Garoppolo's hurt, and rookie Jacoby Brissett starts, and the Bills win 16-0. And it was great, but it was also like, I mean, we beat them, yay. And Rex Ryan, of course, was obnoxious about it. But what the Bills had today was the spotlight game, and Luke has mentioned it several times. The Patriots Colts of that era. You had the CBS broadcast crew in your parking lot for a regular season game. I want to say that's the first time that's ever happened. And they were tailgating with Bills fans. And there's a reason why this game was not flexed to NBC when they flexed it out. They were not letting go of this game. Mahomes and Allen is must-see TV, and the Bills are part of that. I fully understand what all of you understand is it feels a little bit empty until you get that first Super Bowl, because when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, if you were to watch his entire career go by, as great as it's been, without getting one singular Super Bowl, boy, that would sure sting. This feels like an opportunity, his career this year and his career. And if you don't get one Super Bowl, it's like, man, if not, then win. But we are still smack dab in the middle of his prime. We still have a lot of Josh Allen years in front of us. And there's a lot of fans of a lot of teams today that watched their team go out, and whether they won or they lost, they sat down and they watched the Bills and Chiefs kick off at 4:25, and they said, we're not even close to those teams. We can't compete with those teams. They're playing a different sport than we're playing. And that's how it used to feel for us when we'd watch Manning and Brady and Roethlisberger and Breeze, and we were trotting out, love them, but Ryan Fitzpatrick and EJ Manuel and Thad Lewis. So it's nice to be on this side of it. We know it eventually has to become a Super Bowl championship. Hopefully that's this year, but don't ever let the destination prevent you from enjoying the journey, because it's a hell of a journey we're on right now, Luka, as Bills fans. And the next stop on our journey is a bye week, which this team desperately needs. Dalton Kincaid, hopefully he comes back soon. I still think there's a chance he's going to be out maybe a week or two after the bye week. Keon Coleman, another guy I think could be out a week or two after the bye week. We'll see what's going on with Spencer Brown. Hopefully he's back soon. We should get an update on Matt Milano. This team needs to get healthy, get fully formed, go into the playoffs hitting on all cylinders, and make a special, special run. We will be here every step of the way. And Luka, we'll be back next week for a bye week podcast. Not sure when we'll record it. It may or may not include the results from Sunday. We'll have to talk about that, but it's going to be kind of a big picture episode on the Bills. We look forward to that. And Luka, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, God, it feels good. recording after a victory. This one feels extra sweet, of course. And honestly, I don't know if I've ever been more excited for a bye week. I really don't. We talked about it off air, stuff like that. It's one of those ones where this is truly one exciting time to enjoy. And then next week, just watching football, knowing what had happened the previous week, and then knowing what's coming up. I mean, I will say my shout out Nino one more time. He's gotten a lot of shout outs here. He said, I don't necessarily want to have to play a desperate Niners team. I think that's also just kind of living in the past, because what we're seeing here, I don't know how much I fear that. So there's just this nice, comfortable feeling right now that we'll be able to enjoy week 12 football, not have to worry about even the prospect of any chance that the Bills lose. They will win the bye. You are always undefeated through the bye. And I just, man, after that, we're down the home stretch, and boy, buckle up, because this could be one special time.
I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Win or lose, Luka and I will be here every step of the way, including the next step, the bye week. And we will talk to you all next week on Bills Chat.